think that choosing your own peace and standing up for what you believe is right would feel great, but instead you find yourself standing alone. You reached a place where you finally stopped absorbing all the dysfunction. You're prioritizing your own peace and well-being. And while there's a sense of motivating empowerment in that, there is also a void that not a lot of people are talking about. There is so much rhetoric out there about cutoff culture and adult children choosing to go no contact with their parents for petty reasons. But as one who has had to walk this road, and I did it in my 50s, I'm going to be talking today about a piece of this mess that rarely ever gets talked about. And that's the loneliness of standing alone, even when you know you did the right thing for the right reasons. In the vast majority of cases, family breakdown and estrangement do not happen quickly. They're the final result of many years of dysfunction, of not being heard, of not being seen, of not being valued, or being bullied simply because you see things differently and are no longer willing to tolerate harmful behavior. It's not a moment of righteous or self-righteous clarity that leads you marching out the door in victory. It's actually very surreal and very mind-boggling to realize that you are the only one who is willing to admit that the house that you were all in is on fire. It's also a gut punch. You know the others saw it. They smelled the smoke. They felt the flames. You know they didn't like it. And you know it because you had conversations with them about it. But when it came right down to it, when the things got heated and the narrative shifted, they caved. They went silent, or maybe they even switched sides and turned their backs on you. Whatever the case may be, they still stayed behind in that burning house while you found yourself standing alone outside in the cold. Yes, you were safe. Yes, you were free. But you are also still standing outside alone on the sidewalk in the cold, watching the house still burn, while people you love stayed behind in the heat. This is one of the biggest costs of being a cycle breaker. It's also the reality of being the one who changed while everyone else chose to stay the same. Whoever it was that initiated that break most likely didn't just leave. They woke up. Once you see those dysfunctional patterns, the manipulation, the lack of safety, the transactional nature of the love, you can't unsee that stuff. And there also comes a point that you realize that you can't fix them or the people who are doing it. And that loneliness you feel isn't because you're wrong for cutting ties or walking away. It's because you were the only one who wouldn't trade the truth for a seat at the toxic table. And now you're standing alone because you're now speaking about things that the rest of the family has agreed to ignore. It's not the problem itself that is the biggest threat in these kind of dynamics. It is your speaking about the real problem that makes people most uncomfortable. And that's when the tables turn and you become the target. It's a very, very lonely road to walk, especially when you don't really fully understand what's going on or why things have happened. The hardest part isn't that you left or that there's been a break. It's that you realize how truly alone you are. When a family system breaks, you don't just lose a relationship with one person. In so many cases, you lose the whole family. It's the cousins, the siblings, the aunts, the uncles, and the friends who all stayed behind and who also stayed silent. There's a deep, hollow ache that sets in when you realize that these aren't your people. They're never going to have your back. They're going to believe what they want to, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not just that, though. You also lose your sense of shared familiarity. There's a noticeable gap. When those who once used to sit at your table are no longer there, or you're no longer welcome at the one that they're still sitting at. It can be pretty darn disheartening when you step back and look at who stayed behind in the dysfunction, who supported who stood by you, and who didn't. There's a void where those people and those relationships used to be that can't be filled by anything or anyone else. They can't be filled by staying busy, by living somewhere else, by doing something different. Those things do help, but they don't remove the grief that settles deep into your soul over a system that refused to change. One of the hardest parts and the most lonely parts of all of this for me has been the reputation cost and the narrative shifts. The sad reality is that those who stayed behind need you to be the bad guy to protect their own denial. You're now being criticized for the very boundaries you set and the actions you took that saved your life. And you're out there making huge life adjustments, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all the things. And you're doing it largely on your own. While the people you love, maybe who even once said they'd take a bullet for you, still sit there in that burning house, calling your choices, your needs, and your self-preservation selfish. Standing alone is exhausting, but is also the ultimate evidence of your integrity. You chose the truth over a comfortable lie. You didn't break the family. It was already broken. You just stopped being the glue that held it together at your own expense. If you're standing in this void right now and you're trying to make sense of all of the craziness, I've got a little guide for you. It's called Making Sense of the Mess. It's a free little field guide that'll help you find your footing when the system has collapsed and you're the only one still standing in the truth. There's a link down below in the description where you can find it, or you can comment mess and I'll tell you where you can find it. I mentioned earlier that once you finally see the family dysfunction, you can't unsee it. In fact, you'll probably start to see it everywhere because it is everywhere, all around us. This video right up here talks about when the good daughter finally starts to see the dysfunction. Give it a click and I'll meet you over there.